Well, good morning. We're going to play around a little with the technology to make sure that our time together is efficient. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's get started. First and foremost, I want to say thank you because this topic of insecure, I felt they were trolling me when they sent me the email, as if they, as Lauren Hill said, been reading my diary and understood the lifelong relationship and battle to overcome insecurity in which I have been able to live out. So we want to start off by saying thank you. I want to say thank you to our Creative Mornings Lexington staff, volunteers, Jamie and Jason, who, much like Lexington, were half a degree of separation. We've worked together in many different ways. We're here shooting live today at the Mayhan Multimedia Studios. Thank you, Mark, who I've interacted with through Urban League annual dinner. Thank you to Creative Mornings for doing good, for continuing to support our Cherokee State Historic Park fundraiser. Again, it is a gem nestled in the heart of Western Kentucky, where my people are from. These meaningful gifts, they amplify this work that started over 20 years ago, the advocacy for Kentucky's only state park designated to Black people during Jim Crow segregation, which is a huge insecurity, a huge stain on our American dream. And that park originally was opened between 1949 and 1963, much like our beloved Lyric Theater here in Lexington. So donate today. That meaningful gift will seed our 2021 Outdoor Adventure Weekend in partnership with the Friends of Cherokee State Historic Park, Explore Kentucky, Russellville Urban Gardening Project, and Black Soil. And you can visit Friends of Cherokee State Historic State Park.org, for more information. And to you, our Creative Morning registrants, I want to say a huge thank you for your support, not only today, but every time I've been able to be graced with an opportunity to represent not only myself, but you, your investments. You have sustained me over many amounts of time, and I'm so glad to spend this morning with you. So today we will explore our topic of insecure through a lens of a social scientist, myself, a sociologist who really went through UK not knowing what and how she wanted to live her life. She knew she wanted to help others. So to my family, my mentors, my support system, as you know, I'm Lexington born and raised through and through. I am Southside, Tate's Creek, Creek dog all the way. That's right. I honor my mother, Marilyn, my father, Cleveland. I recognize my sister and my nephew, my sister, Lindsay, and my nephew, Tyler. I am 1/4 of Black Soil, our better nature. So I recognize my beloved family business, which is led in partnership with Trevor Sr. And our next generation of leaders are adorable 17-month-old twins who are wild. Please pray for your friends of multiples. They are Caroline Faye and Trevor Jr. And so in addition to these things, I lift up the strategic network of mentors, members of my support system who uphold me and nourish me. And lastly, a very special thank you to the over 60 Kentucky-based Black farmers, culinary artists, value-added product vendors, artists who have proven time and time again that the root in which was thought to be stomped out is flourishing and advancing. And we honor and recognize these heroes, these superheroes amongst us. So, as we stated earlier, we are gathered here today, dearly beloved, as our forefather Prince let us know, we're huddled really around this topic of insecurity. And I pray that our time is filled with purpose, that we are attentive to our own agreements with this deceptive nature of this concept, this universal emotion, this paradigm, this soothsayer. And so we are going to, as I stated, unpack this topic, this concept, this fallacy of insecurity through the lens of a social scientist. And so first, I always want to take us to the root. So when I got this email like last Wednesday or Thursday, I was like, do I say yes? Do I say no? I got a lot on my plate. But there is an opportunity to carve out meaningful time to set aside and use the things that have been my biggest insecurities, how I've leveraged them to be my biggest triumphs in my life. So when we look up the word in the dictionary, insecure, we observe that it's been around for a couple of centuries. Since the mid 17th century, we have been battling with this word. But before we were able to communicate through an actual express word, we knew that concept was always around us. And so it's not only been around, it's ever present, much like today. And secondly, we observe that the synonyms and the breakdown of this adjective, we'll come back to that. So there are two main parts of this word. One, it's an external focus, not firmly fixed, liable to give way or break. So that's looking at a physical structure, that's looking at a job or a position. In the definition B, you see exposed, vulnerable of a job or position from which removal or expulsion is always possible. Always, never. You know, those terms that counselors help you in your marriage counseling to never use in arguments, always and never. And so for this definition to be rooted in always possible, expulsion, removal, unstable, unsecure, fragile, able to be broken into, illicitly accessed, forced, strained. And then when we focus internally on the definition of this word, we see that there is a self-doubting, there is a shrinking, there is a fear-mongering because we are not confident, assured, we are uncertain and anxious. And so that second observation of this word being defined as an adjective, its function grammatically is an adjective. And that observation moved me because I remember one of my first functions of learning grammar was being able to master what a noun is: a person, a place, a thing, concrete, factual, actual, a monument, an object. I loved identifying nouns around the house. And much as I watch my children learning to pick up language, they're grasping onto this very concrete foundational understanding of nouns, persons, places, things. And secondly, I was moved on to learning the other building blocks of language, adjectives, discovering adjectives, a piece of pizzazz, that extra cheese, that fluffy additive to enhance that boring noun, an accessory, something that is layered or heaped upon us. A red jacket, okay? Take away that color, it's always a jacket. Take away the lies of insecurity, and what do you have at your core of who you are? Because those insecurities are layers of external pressures meeting with those internal pressures and colliding. And so this concept of insecurity often leaves us with the residue of things not mandated to be in alignment with our ultimate purpose, path, and vision. These temporary voices, feelings, emotions perpetuate crippling falsehoods that rob us of our core identity, name, our calling, however you invoke your higher resolve. And as we continue in the breakdown of what it means to be insecure, we've understood, we've unpacked the designation of an adjective. We now are looking at how, again, as a social scientist, I'm looking at how the individual is affected in comparison to the whole of the system affecting that individual. So this insecurity is a dual opponent. It's crafty, it's deceitful, it keeps you on your toes. Not only are you battling the things in which have caused crippling or wincing or second guessing or shrinking, but all around us, we have the interactions with our external insecurities from people we work with, people in our families, systems. For 12 weeks, we sat in quarantine. We watched moments just immediately. We watched as moments change before our eyes. Gonna- And so as we navigated the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, this thing that has swept our nation, our globe, taking out hundreds and thousands and millions of lives tragically. In a moment, businesses that have sustained families and livelihoods are gone. Insecure, lines to food banks, hours, people showing up at 4 and 5 a.m. How do we have stability in moments in which everything can just vanish? How can we navigate the larger systemic institutionalized abilities in which insecurity has swept its way into our everyday lives? It's baked itself into everything we have. So the heaviness of the external consequences are heaped upon the internalized experience. The compounded nature of external weaknesses serve as a pressure cooker for the development of deterioration of one's self-view. And so that's why we at Black Soil do what we do. We know there are ever-present systems that have preceded us, that will continue to live on, unfortunately, after we're gone. But in these moments, we want to be rooted in power and purpose. Because when you know the true voice in which you need to be guiding your path, following your journey on, will not lead you astray. And so we're rooted in power and purpose. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my story of overcoming insecurity, in which for 34 years, I've had to every single day make the decision of who was going to win. Some of my earliest memories of being insecure, or having the feeling of allowing others really to make me feel insecure, came from playground bullies. You're ugly. We don't want to play with you. You don't look like us. You sure are smart for a Black girl. Sure are pretty for a Black girl. These micro insults, these microaggressions are like echo chambers. And they echo, 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 echo to the depths of your soul. And a lot of times when we come into these events and we want to hear about how self-help or do-it-yourself can propel you to the next level, we oftentimes overlook the foundational systemic insecurities that fester in the ways we're socialized, that fester in the ways that our relationships are built and maintained. I know that for many years, I wouldn't really speak out in crowds because I was so bullied because of the way that I spoke. I was the proper girl. You know, I've come from a very deep Southern family, so I kind of speak multiple languages and dialects, and even they had an issue with how proper I spoke. And I've been able to harness my voice oftentimes throughout my career for people who have been voiceless, have been overlooked, have been demeaned. And for 3 years now, we have traveled this state, uplifting the voices, the narratives, the experience of Kentucky's Black agricultural class. And that being rooted in my purpose and my power, and so many things along the way have wanted me to quit, have caused me to want to quit, to give up. In those moments, I have to dig deep, 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 deep in my soul and understand that these temporary feelings, these falsehoods, these fallacies should not be able to corrupt, break down, falter my foundation, my core, my noun, who I am at the very, very essence of who I am. So first, you want to be able to be empowered. You want to learn your opponent. You want to weaken that opponent. In my next slide, I'm going to show you just a little bit about what I mean by that. Sunday, we come home. We live on a farm. Love it. We said when we started this work, within our first 5 years, we want to be anchored on some sort of agricultural operation. So we're actively moving through our mission and our vision in partnership with the network in which we work with. And so when we get out of the car, I know I'm not seeing things. I look and I look again and I'm like, I know that's not a snake on my house. I scream the most bloody murder scream. And so immediately Trevor jumps into, okay, what am I supposed to do mode? We call our resident farmhand, 13-year-old beekeeper, Cotham, to come save the day because we're completely, we're rendered helpless. We're shrinking, we're fragile, we're fearful, we're strange, we're forced into paralysis. We can't move any further because, again, I have to walk into that door where that snake is. And I do not do snakes. I don't do spiders. I don't do anything of it. And so I have to first reach out to my friends and be like, okay, what does it mean with a snake at the front door? I know there is some sort of spiritual higher meaning. My first thing my mother says is, do you have a hole in your house? I'm sorry, wait, what? Do I have a hole in my house? Next text I send is to my friend Regina. Regina says it means new beginnings, transformations, moving forward in the world. Well, it means to me I'm going to wince every single time I walk through my door because I no longer have the confidence to walk through the door that I've been trusting and able to rely on without question, without wincing or hesitation, recoiling, because if a snake falls on me, baby, that's the last day that snake's gonna have on this earth. And so to go back to the original illustration, I first had to unpack and recognize that this snake has a purpose. And the snake is to be later identified as a rat snake. And so we realized that it doesn't harm or attack humans. So I started to feel a little bit better, more assured. And when I realized that I kept giving this snake the energy to sit and dwell in my mind, the insecurity of me walking through that door and the literal snake falling on my shoulders was very real, very real. Now, mind you, that snake is no longer there. It is moved on. It now, I see it poking its head out through the trees, and I'm like, okay, this snake needs to go. But look how this is lived out. Look at how I was able to go and empower myself through awareness. I took to that Google. I ran all the pictures to understand my opponent. I quickly understood that if my 17-month-old twins are outside playing, they're going to want to grab that snake. So we have to help that snake move itself along, send it to its rightful place. That's not where it belongs. And so the illustration is to further us in understanding whatever we have identified that insecurity within our opening breakouts that we want to confront. We first must look it dead in the eye and remove the power in which it has had deep, deep, deep inside of our hearts. Because at the end of the day, you're continuing to agree with something that is optional. And insecurity, again, is defined, is designated as an adjective. It is an additive, it is an addition, it is a layer, it is not the core component of which you reside in this world. It is not your purpose. So, with that being said, I want to speak about how, in light of identifying insecurities, that you can move through them, you can be empowered, you can find your tribe of people in which you will be uplifting, because when you're so focused on yourself, insecure, inside, when you're motivated by purpose, people, pushing it out, that's not to undercut the self-care and the foundational things in which you should do to help heal those trauma responses in which triggered those insecurities. We cannot overlook the microaggressions, the systematic and institutionalized ways in which, again, these external consequences affect us on our everyday journey. As I stated before, it would be really easy to identify an issue in the communities in which we reside and turn our heads and keep going. And thankfully, because of how my mother and father, my grandparents, and my support system have raised me, pushed me towards my purpose, I've been able to live out a purpose-filled life. You see, I took the bullying and I took those pressures of not fitting in, and I used them to harness this voice that I didn't think could ever really be heard. I remember most recently I was doing an interview with a local media outlet, and she said, "Ashley, you are so bright, but you talk too fast." Then I was like, wow, I talk too much, talk too fast, but I got to use this voice to showcase a problem that's nagging, that's an insecurity. Because when you really break down agriculture, the one industry that all of us need, we all eat. And when I moved from my beloved lyric theater, working in the arts, that's a whole talk in itself, okay? And I went and I worked and invested in agriculture. I quickly learned that some of our greatest insecurities played out through institutional racism and systematic oppression thrive in this industry, thrive in this sector. And we know that here in Lexington, when we speak about insecurity, that 40% of our county lives in food deserts, food insecure communities. I was troubled by that. I also knew that 1 in 5 Black American households were food insecure, but 40% of our food goes wasted. Let's make it make sense. And then I also know that one of the biggest insecurities of America is racism. It's the fallacy of supremacy that we can break people into groups and place them in hierarchy. And that hierarchy then affects every piece, component, DNA, gene, everything. And so when we started Black Soil, Our Better Nature, we said, if Mother Nature can't see who puts the seed in the ground, then why in the state of Kentucky do Black farm products coming off of their farm, why are they valued at 10 million? Just over a little 10 million, compared to their white counterparts and their farm products being valued at over 5 billion. This cannot be. This is an insecurity. This is a system that, like our definition said, is able to be broken into. It's not firmly fixed. It's not serving anyone. And so we wanted to move forth in harnessing that power, harnessing our purpose in a way that provided solutions. Because when you're stuck in insecurity, you really can't see your way out of it because you're, again, so deeply entrenched in the self-doubt, the fear, the pity, the strain, the force, the exposure to vulnerability. And we knew that first and foremost, there were people already in this work, and we sought them out. And we quickly realized that the mental anguish and the mental fatigue and the trust fatigue of our Black farmers here in the state was so deep and was so entrenched that security and honor and dignity were the soothing balms and salves that we first needed to apply. This solution-based programming is really relationship-centered. And so we knew that improving the quality of life of African Americans in the state was essential. And we knew that our farmers, our culinary artists, our value-added product vendors, and our artists were the superheroes who needed that boost, that centering, that security, that reassurance to say, we are here, we see you. Because oftentimes insecurity wants to lie to you and say, you're not seen, you're overlooked. And oftentimes those consequences are heaped upon us, as stated before, and those are real lived experiences. And so our mission is to reconnect Black Kentuckians to their heritage and legacy in agriculture with a vision to develop markets to increase their opportunities for procurement. And so we've been successful with very little. It would be very easy for me to walk away from this work feeling like a failure because we've been self-funded, we don't have a lot of money, but in spite of, we have been able to honor and lift up Black farmers, culinary artists, by bringing people from across the state to their operations. Now in post-COVID-19 life, we are moving farm shares, we are uplifting these operations by sourcing, excuse me, by sourcing restaurants across our state. Something's got me here, excuse me. Now, how do you properly yawn and bust that air bubble in your ear while you're speaking? I apologize. And so we continue in servicing our community. And as we've progressed, there have been many things along the way that have wanted us to stay put, to stay silent, but we have continued to speak up, and we've grown our services. And we have most recently gone up in what I feel is groundbreaking work with Ashland the Henry Clay Estate through historic interpretation of agriculture, where we're digging deep into our history that has been fortified, that has been codified in our everyday life and understanding who is a leader, how we attribute labor, and the contributions of that labor. And so for 2 years, we worked with the staff, the curators, the archivists, community members at Ashland the Henry Clay Estate. And we recently launched Traces, Slavery at Ashland, which is the state's only guided tour dedicated to slavery in the state of Kentucky. And during this tour, we are not speaking about uplifting and protecting the reputation of Mr. Clay. We are there to evoke and bring to the forefront the voices of the hundreds of people who to this day don't have a picture, don't have their names. And so because of the voice in which tried to be stomped out for years, was able to be strategic and listen and lift up through opportunities, a chance to right with historical wrongs and balance out a more equitable telling, a more true telling of how Kentucky's hemp roots were seeded and sowed and harvested by the Black forefathers of this state. And so as we continue to grow, we want to lift up these brands in which every single day would be easy for them to give up. It would be easy for them to sit in a corner and be insecure. It would be easy to say, you know, my people have been forced to do this work with no pay, then sharecropping and then pushed off land, losing millions of acres every single year. But we uplift these folks doing this work because we know that the stability in which having everyone playing their part in agriculture is the only way we move forward. And that when we're secure in the truth, we all win. And when we're secure in going out into the community and lifting up the quality of life measures for African Americans, not only for this state, but all across this country, we stand in harnessing our power and our purpose. And so we're thankful that we have a proven track record with a plan for the future, because these farmers need not only your support, they need to be positioned as leaders who are strong, who are ready to take on the new and beginning farmers in which we are destined to build up across this state over the next 20, 50, 100 years of this work. So we uplift in these moments the ability to harness a journey, a triumph over insecurity that so oftentimes sneaks and rears its ugly head in ways that are costly, in ways that are detrimental to the places, the people, the things, the core definitions, the core identities. These individuals who make up our network are perfect reminders of how not giving up, how when things aren't firmly fixed and you do break down those systems, that when the door is open, you're ready to bust it open because you've done your work. And so I leave you with these words. Insecurity has no place in your life. Insecurity has no place in your work, has no place in your calling. You must remove it to make room for your destiny, for your purpose, for your path. Because there were many times, like I said many times in this speech, that I could have sat down, laid down, given up, listened to the voices of hatred, to the voices of people's own insecurity. And I chose in those moments to search deeper inside of myself for my purpose. I sought counsel. I sought mentors who would then counter and speak the life that I needed, the life that you need. So again, thinking about that initial prompt, what are you insecure about? Write it down, speak it aloud. Let it lose the power that it holds when it's inside. And when we're dealing with the insecurities and the consequences of our external insecurities, be aware, be vigilant, be firm and stand in who you are, because those things are going to come. Those Facebook posts are going to go up, those rumors, those screenshots, whatever it is. You get to hold the line and remind yourself that insecurity is an adjective. It's not a mandate. It's not foundational. It's not core. So when you define your purpose, when you define your identity, that's when you've truly harnessed your power. That's when you truly are a change maker or a change agent. And we thank you so much for the opportunity to be vulnerable, transparent, to share that insecurity is, we're not bulletproof to it. We have to actively every single day make a decision, make a commitment to choosing ourselves over the crippling fragility of insecurity. Choose wisely, choose now, and choose yourself.